5 years. That is how much longer people with the highest levels of omega-3 in their blood actually lived, compared to those with the lowest levels, according to the Framingham Heart Study. I'll put a link to that research in the description below so you can read it yourself. This is one of the longest-running cardiovascular studies ever conducted in medical history. And that number, 5 years, should stop you cold for a moment. Because to put it into real perspective, that is roughly the same number of years that a lifelong smoking habit takes off your life. Just in reverse. Omega-3 appears to add what smoking steals. And here's where it gets remarkable. The most reliable, most studied, most affordable way to get that omega-3 into your body, especially after 60, when your body needs it most, is a food that most people walk straight past in the grocery store without a second glance. A small, humble, inexpensive tin of sardines. Now, I want to do something a little unconventional today to show you exactly how powerful this food really is. I want to walk you through, hour by hour, day by day, what would actually happen inside your body if sardines were the only thing you ate for an entire week. Every meal, 7 days, nothing else. Now, am I recommending you actually do that? I'm going to give you my completely honest answer before this video is over. And I promise you, it may not be what you expect. But I want to show you the science first. Because once you understand what this small, overlooked fish does inside the aging body, you will never look at that tin the same way again. My name is Dr. Cole, and this is NaturaCura MD, where we bring you real, evidence-based health information for living longer, stronger, and more independently after 60. Let's get into it. Here's what nobody tells you about getting older. The threats that shorten your life after 60 are almost never the ones you can see or feel coming. They're quiet, slow-moving. They build for years inside your body before they announce themselves. Sometimes as a heart attack, sometimes as a diagnosis you weren't prepared for, sometimes as a gradual fading of the mental sharpness you've always counted on. And what sits underneath nearly all of those threats is something I talk about constantly with my patients. It is chronic, low-grade inflammation. Not the kind of inflammation you feel when you sprain an ankle. Not a fever or an obvious injury. I'm talking about a slow, smoldering fire that burns silently inside you, in your blood vessels, in your brain tissue, in your joints, in every major organ system. For years, sometimes decades, before the damage becomes visible on any test. Research confirms that this chronic inflammatory state is the common thread running beneath heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, osteoarthritis, and even certain cancers. A study published in the journal Nature Medicine described it as inflammaging, the low-grade inflammatory process that accelerates biological aging in people over 60. Here is what makes this so urgent for you specifically. After 60, your body's natural ability to resolve inflammation, to put the fire out, begins to decline. The cellular machinery that signals your body to switch off the inflammatory response becomes less efficient, which means that fire burns longer. It burns hotter, and the damage it does accumulates faster than it did when you were younger. Now, most of my patients come to me carrying medications for the result of that fire. Blood pressure medications, cholesterol drugs, anti-inflammatory prescriptions. And while those medications have their place, almost none of them address the fire itself. They manage the smoke while the flame keeps burning. What the research shows consistently across decades of nutritional science is that certain whole foods, particularly oily fish like sardines, contain the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds we have identified in medicine. Not supplements manufactured in a laboratory. Not a patented molecule. A small, silver fish. Let me show you exactly why. I want to break down the main reasons that sardines specifically keep appearing in the longevity research. Because this isn't one benefit. It is 4 distinct, interlocking mechanisms that work together inside the aging body. And once you understand these, the science of what happens during a 7-day sardine experiment will make complete sense. The first reason is what sardines do for your heart and your blood vessels. Sardines are among the richest sources on Earth of 2 specific omega-3 fatty acids called EPA and DHA. Your body cannot produce these on its own in meaningful quantities. You have to get them from food. And what these 2 fats do inside your cardiovascular system is remarkable. They lower your blood triglycerides, the dangerous fats that circulate in your bloodstream and damage your artery walls. They bring blood pressure down modestly, but meaningfully. And they make your blood platelets less sticky, which reduces the tendency to form the clots that cause heart attacks and strokes. But here is the one that I want you to pay particular attention to, especially if you're over 65. EPA and DHA appear to stabilize the electrical system of the heart. They make it significantly less likely for the heart to fall into the kind of chaotic, disorganized rhythms, the arrhythmias that cause sudden cardiac arrest. The the kind that kills without warning. This is why the American Heart Association recommends at least 2 servings of oily fish every week. Not as a general wellness suggestion, as a specific cardiovascular protection strategy. Think of it this way. Your heart is an electrical pump, and over time, aging can disrupt the rhythm of that pump, the way a power line might flicker during a storm. Omega-3 fatty acids act like a stabilizer on that electrical system, smoothing the signal and reducing the risk of a dangerous surge. The second reason is inflammation, and we've already established why this matters so deeply after 60. Your body actually uses EPA and DHA to manufacture specialized molecules called resolvins and protectins. These are biological signals that tell your immune system to stand down, to stop the inflammatory response once it has done its job. When you're deficient in omega-3, your body has fewer of these resolution signals. The fire smolders on. When you consume omega-3 regularly, you're literally providing your body with the raw materials it needs to put the fire out. Eating sardines regularly is not just reducing inflammation. It is restoring your body's ability to regulate itself. That is a fundamentally different and more powerful thing. The third reason is what sardines do for your brain, and this is the one that moves me most as a physician. Your brain is nearly 60% fat. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The organ responsible for everything you are, your memories, your personality, your judgment, your ability to love the people around you, is built almost entirely out of fat. And the single most important structural fat in your brain cells is DHA, the very same omega-3 found in sardines. DHA is woven into the membranes of every neuron in your brain. It is what allows your brain cells to communicate with the speed and precision they need to function properly. Studies published in journals, including Neurology and JAMA, have linked higher omega-3 intake with better preservation of brain volume, better white matter integrity, and immeasurably lower risk of cognitive decline as we age. You are, in a very literal and biological sense, building your brain out of the fats you choose to eat. And I ask you sincerely, what do you think gives your brain better structural material? A tin of wild-caught sardines, or the refined, deodorized, industrially processed seed oils that fill the packaged food most of us grew up eating? The answer is not a close one. The fourth reason is nutrient density, and this is where sardines become almost a single tin of sardines, high-quality protein, aging are clinically deficient in, and that plays a critical role in immune function, bone strength, mood, and even cancer prevention. It delivers vitamin B12, which is essential for nerve function and which becomes harder to absorb from food as we get older. And because we eat the small, soft bones of the sardine, it delivers calcium at levels genuinely comparable to dairy. And here is something that surprises almost everyone I mention it to. Because sardines are tiny fish at the very bottom of the ocean food chain, with short lifespans and no time to accumulate toxins, they carry virtually none of the mercury contamination that makes large predatory fish like tuna a concern. You get everything. You avoid the risk. Pound for pound, it is extraordinarily difficult to identify a more complete, safer, more affordable source of nutrition. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Let's walk through what actually happens inside your body when sardines become your entire diet for 7 days. On the first day and into the second, the most dramatic changes happening in your body have almost nothing to do with the sardines themselves. They're about what you've stopped eating. A pure sardine diet contains essentially 0 carbohydrates. No sugar, no broth, no pasta, no processed food, none of it. So your body begins immediately burning through its stored carbohydrate reserves, the glycogen packed into your liver and your muscle tissue. And here is something that surprises people. Every single gram of glycogen is bound to approximately 3 grams of water. As that glycogen depletes, you shed a significant amount of water weight. Quickly, people step on the scales after 2 or 3 days and believe they have lost fat. Most of it is water. But what else is happening simultaneously is real and significant. Your insulin levels are dropping sharply. And falling insulin is the biological signal that flips your metabolism from fat-storing mode into fat-burning mode. By day 3 and day 4, something more substantial begins. With your glycogen stores depleted and your insulin low, your liver begins converting stored body fat into molecules called ketones, an alternative fuel source for your brain and body. This state is called ketosis. And as ketone levels rise, several things tend to happen that are consistently reported by people who experience it. The relentless background hunger that most of us live with, the cravings for sweets, for something crunchy, for something processed, begins to fade. Protein and fat are deeply satisfying in a way that refined carbohydrates simply are not. And ketones themselves appear to blunt appetite through direct action on the hunger centers of the brain. Blood sugar becomes remarkably stable. No espicas, no crashes, no mid-afternoon energy collapse. And many people, my patients included, describe a kind of mental evenness, a clarity that they hadn't felt in years. Now, across the second half of the week, days 4 through 7, the omega-3 effects begin to layer on top of all of this. Your blood levels of EPA and DHA climb steadily as your cells begin incorporating these fats into their membranes. And the anti-inflammatory benefits start showing up in small but real ways. Joints feel a little less stiff in the morning. Digestion settles. Bloating that many people assume is just normal life decreases noticeably. Skin can look clearer. And sleep, for many people, improves because blood sugar stability overnight removes one of the most common hidden disruptors of deep sleep in older adults. By day 7, you would likely feel lighter, less inflamed, more in control of your appetite than perhaps you have in years. And your cardiovascular markers, if you could measure them, would be moving in a positive direction. Now, here is where I have to be completely straight with you, because I promised you honesty at the beginning of this video, and I intend to keep that promise. Most of what feels remarkable during that 7-day experiment is not unique to sardines. The majority of those benefits, the stable energy, the reduced bloating, the clearer blood sugar, the fading cravings, happen to almost anyone who suddenly and completely eliminates refined carbohydrates, added sugar, and ultra-processed food from their diet. What you are feeling is largely the absence of the damage rather than the presence of some special magic in the fish itself. And I want to be absolutely clear about something. That realization does not diminish the value of the lesson. Because the lesson that removing processed food and refined carbohydrates from your diet is one of the most powerful health decisions you can make after 60 is completely true, profoundly important, and something I wish more of my patients understood earlier in their lives. But eating only sardines for 7 days? I would not recommend it to you. And I would not do it myself. Here's why. A pure sardine diet eliminates entire categories of food that your body genuinely needs, particularly the fiber-rich plants that feed the trillions of bacteria living in your gut. Those bacteria are not passengers. They are active participants in your immune function, your hormone regulation, your mood, your inflammation levels, and your protection against certain cancers. When you eliminate the fiber that feeds them, the diversity of your gut microbiome can begin to decline within 48 to 72 hours. You can end up in a strange position of eating very cleanly while quietly starving the part of your body that does much of the work of keeping you well. You cannot sardine a poor overall diet. You cannot store up 5 years of life expectancy in 7 days. That is not how longevity works. What the research supports, more consistently than almost any other dietary pattern in modern medicine, is a whole food, Mediterranean-style way of eating. Very little ultra-processed food, minimal refined carbohydrates, quality protein, abundant fiber-rich plants, healthy fats from sources like extra virgin olive oil, and yes, oily fish, including sardines, at least twice a week. That is the pattern found in the longest living populations on Earth. Not a 7-day experiment, a lifetime of quiet, consistent habits. I want to tell you about a patient I'll call Helen. Helen was 71 when she first came to see me. She was a sharp, independent woman. Former schoolteacher, avid gardener, but she was carrying a list of concerns that had been quietly accumulating for years. Her blood pressure was elevated. Her triglycerides were high. Her joints ached persistently, particularly her knees and her hands. And she told me, with real frustration in her voice, that her memory wasn't what it used to be. She would lose words mid-sentence, walk into a room and forget why she was there. Small things, but they frightened her. She had been taking 3 medications for 5 years, and she looked at me and asked the question I hear more than almost any other in my practice. Is this just what getting old feels like? Is this just what I have to accept now? I told her what I tell every patient who asks me that. No, this is not inevitable, and we're going to find out what your body actually needs. We made several changes together, but one of the most consistent, most sustainable changes was this. Sardines and mackerel became a permanent fixture in her weekly eating. Twice a week at minimum, alongside leafy greens, beans, olive oil, and whole fruits. We removed the refined carbohydrates that had quietly dominated her diet for decades. The white bread, the packaged crackers, the low-fat processed foods that were anything but healthy. Within 3 months, her triglycerides had dropped significantly. Her blood pressure was measurably lower. She told me her knees felt, and this was her word, quieter. Less angry. She was sleeping more deeply. And the word-finding issue that had frightened her most? She noticed it less. Not gone entirely, but noticeably better. Helen told me at her 6-month appointment that she felt more like herself than she had in a decade. Not because of a 7-day experiment. Because of a quiet, consistent habit she built and maintained meal by meal, week by week. The body wants to heal. It just needs the right conditions. If this is the kind of information that you find genuinely useful, and I hope it is, I want to ask you to take just a moment right now and subscribe to NaturaCura MD if you haven't already. I publish new videos every single week on exactly this kind of evidence-based health information for people over 60. Information about your heart, your brain, your joints, your metabolism, your sleep, all of it grounded in real research and real clinical experience. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you never miss what's coming next. Your health deserves that investment. So let me bring this together for you with something practical. Because information without action doesn't help anyone. The first thing I want you to do is get sardines, or mackerel, or herring into your diet at least twice a week, starting this week. Not as a 7-day experiment. Permanent, non négociable à vie. On whole grain crackers. In a salad. With a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil and a squeeze of lemon over leafy greens. The preparation can be simple. The commitment needs to be lasting. The second thing is to look honestly at the refined carbohydrates and ultra-processed foods in your current diet and begin systematically removing them. Not perfectly, not overnight, but deliberately and progressively. Every meal you build around whole foods rather than packaged processed foods is a direct reduction in that smoldering inflammatory fire. Your blood vessels feel it. Your brain feels it. Your joints feel it. The third thing is to protect your gut. Eat fiber-rich plants every single day. Beans, lentils, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, whole fruits with their skin intact. These are the foods that feed the bacteria, keeping you well. Don't starve them for the sake of any extreme dietary experiment. The fourth thing, and I say this with genuine urgency, is to have a conversation with your doctor about your omega-3 levels and your inflammatory markers. Ask for a simple blood test. Most people over 60 have never had this conversation. And yet those numbers can tell you more about your 10-year cardiovascular risk than almost anything else a basic blood panel will show you. It is never too late. I have seen patients in their late 70s reverse damage that took decades to accumulate. The body's capacity for repair, when given the right raw materials, is consistently more powerful than most people believe. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today. That humble, overlooked tin of sardines sitting on a grocery store shelf, passed by 1,000 shoppers who never give it a second glance. Maybe one of the most powerful longevity foods available to you right now. Not because of any single dramatic effect, but because of what it consistently delivers to your heart, your brain, your joints, and your cells, week after week, year after year. You cannot earn 5 extra years of life in 7 days. But you can build a habit this week that, maintained across the years ahead, genuinely changes the trajectory of your health. Quietly, affordably, deliciously, if you learn to prepare it well. And I want to leave you with something I say often in my practice, something I believe with every year of clinical experience I've accumulated. The most powerful medicine I have ever witnessed is not found in a prescription bottle. It is found on your plate, in the choices you make with your fork every single day. You have more control over how you age than any pill I could ever prescribe you. And that is not a disclaimer. That is the most important clinical truth I know. The best time to start eating like your life depends on it was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Now I have a question for you, and I genuinely want to know. Have you ever tried sardines or oily fish as part of your regular diet? Or is this something you've always meant to try, but never quite got around to? Tell me in the comments below. Drop a yes if sardines are already part of your routine, or not yet if you're going to give them a try after watching this. I read every comment, and your answers help me create better content for you. If this video gave you something valuable today, a piece of information you didn't have before, please share it with someone you love. A spouse, a sibling, a friend who is navigating their health after 60. You might be passing along something that genuinely changes their life. That is not an exaggeration. That is exactly what good health information can do. And make sure you're subscribed to NaturaCura MD, because next week, I'm going to cover something that directly connects to everything we talked about today. Something that the majority of people over 65 are getting completely wrong about their heart health, and that most routine doctor's appointments never address. You do not want to miss that one. Everything I've shared with you today is general medical information based on published research and my clinical experience working with patients over many years. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice from your own physician. Before making any significant changes to your diet, your supplements, or your health routine, particularly if you're managing a chronic condition or taking medications. Please consult your own doctor. Your individual health history matters, and your doctor needs to be part of these conversations.